Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we are playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and in today's episode, we start the witness testimony. So this is a case against Professor Harebrayne, who is accused of murder, presumably through neglect, but we'll see what truths come out as we listen to this witness testimony. Without further ado, let's hop into the game. All right, affront for murder. What are they going to say? A corpse that went crashing through the crystal tower had a broken neck. I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam protection. That's all. That was my mistake. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in his chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow is the only one who could have done it. Interesting. Okay, so they're saying he wasn't killed. The judge's expression, oh my goodness. An extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart. Information I would really like to have heard from somewhere other than the judge. The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. I have here the experiment plan document that was submitted to the security team. Okay. The victim stood himself inside something called the birdcage, ready to be beamed instantly. Alright. To the second level of the crystal tower, about 25 yards away. What happened? What went wrong? The experiment did not go according to plan, however. Obviously not. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. The blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis resulted in the birdcage materializing in midair, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the crystal tower's large round window. My word! One assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower, then. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident. A terrible accident. Unfortunately, that excuse can't save you. Nope, not considering the sharp murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart. Murder weapon? What are you saying? This is the autopsy report submitted by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered into the court record. Oh boy, we'll look over that for sure. That's going to be useful. Your request is granted, counsel. Alright, so the autopsy report of the victim, Mr. Asman. His neck was broken from the impact of a violent fall, and he was stabbed in the chest with a sharp object. We're definitely, we need to check that out ASAP, I think. I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. And the only other person on the stage with Mr. Asman was that disgraceful excuse for a scientist. And then really, by all accounts, it must have been him. Humph. Hard to think otherwise, really. Very well. Counsel for the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. Oh, boy. Alright, the cross-examination. Now, before we do that, I'm going to examine what we have in the court record right now. So first, we have the newspaper containing the various articles about the world-leading science technology on show at the Great Exhibition being held in London. So this was the one where it has the Great Exhibition on the back, on the front, and then the article about the Reaper attacked on the back, right? Okay. And then this is the experiment sketch. What could... I wonder what he could have been stabbed with. Something on the balloon, maybe? I almost wonder. But I don't see anything. I still don't know. I've never found a use for the magnifying glass. Alright, and then we have this torn piece of canvas-like material backed with rubber. I think that seems to be like part of the balloon, right? Let's see. We can examine this, right? I guess we can't really... let's see. It looks like the layers of thick canvas with a thick rubber lining of sorts. I've never seen anything like it before. But applying Mr. Sholmes' methods, you might deduce it was part of a raincoat worn by someone who really, really didn't want to get wet. And the charring must have occurred when the person was struck by lightning. Or maybe not. Yeah, that definitely sounds like Sholmes' deductions there. Alright, this is the mysterious contraption. This was found behind a tree under the experimentation stage. I think this was what was used to pierce his heart, right? Is there anything we can examine on it? I don't... It doesn't look like it. But it's like a crossbow is what it looks like. Alright. And then we have... the photograph of the victim. He had been after he had been ostensibly beamed to the Crystal Tower. So it's got his stab wound in the chest there. Yeah, he's got like he would have had to have gotten stabbed from the front. I wonder if someone was trying to shoot the balloon down and he just accidentally got in the way. The autopsy report of the victim. Let's look at this. Details of the victim. Okay, so the name, Odi Osman, male. Age 47, nationality British, of course. Time of death, October 21st, around 2:20 p.m. Okay. Cause of death, hemorrhage of a wound to the chest that pierced the heart, inflicted by a sharp implement. Additional observations. Okay, this is going to be important. A broken vertebrae, most likely resulting from impact after a sudden fall from considerable height. Maybe, if something hit him from the crossbow, maybe it just, that was what did it, maybe? I don't know. Alright, time for the cross-examination. The corpse that went crashing through the Crystal Tower had a broken neck. Hold it! Are you suggesting that's because he fell from a considerable height? Exactly, which highlights something else about this whole rum business. What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. After the explosion, the cage with the fella inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in mid-air. So although the experiment ended in disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor, what was the cause of the fatal disaster? I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake. So the angle of projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself personally? Absolutely. The calculation is far too complicated for anyone but me to carry out. Only you got it wrong, didn't you? Yes, that's right. That's the point. The calculation is so complicated, even I can make a mistake. Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable, so I just don't understand how this could have happened. Obviously, then, you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Osman was wearing at the time, I suppose? Crackling comets! The answer should have been 3! So much for safety first. The 3 must be for safety third. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. Oops, I need to press that statement. There was a lesion in his chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and insincere. Thanks. So, what was the nature of this sharp object? Among the accused tools that were in use at the demonstration, one is of particular interest. This. Ah, yes, that would be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it? Ah, there he is! My trusty little companion, Andrew! You named your screwdriver. Andrew. Of course. And do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends, like all my tools. I named them all, you know. We're one big happy family. Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly, Judge. Andrew is my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead. Well, it would appear that your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. That isn't... It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt. No. And that's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? But it also looks like it could be fired out of that contraption. Order! Order! The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. Alright, so the screwdriver has been entered into the court record. Professor Harebrayne's trusty screwdriver that he's named Andrew. There are traces of blood at the tip and it matches the shape of the victim's wound. So, one of Professor Harebrayne's tools is the murder weapon? Great! Not an impossible defense at all. So, the victim was killed before he went anywhere, and this fellow is the only one who could have done it.
Hold it!
What grounds do you have for saying that? Ha! Do you really need to ask? There were only 2 people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd. The victim, Mr. Odiasman, and the accused, Professor Harebrayne. And we know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right. I saw him with my own eyes. Furthermore, following the explosion and kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could possibly have done it. Hello?
Excuse me.
What's wrong? Professor Harebrayne, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Hello? Professor? Sorry. I was just calculating the optimum coefficient of electrolysis to separate molecules in the human body. And the witness stand is the best place for that. It seemed as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right. Of course. He just said that nobody else could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who could have stabbed the victim, eh? I don't know, but there's no way that I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Asman, as you say. Eh? Explain, please, Professor. Of course. This cold-hearted policeman may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard. Then surely you see. If I'd plunged something the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, a blood swimming pool. I mean, that's true. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. And yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see, not one. True. I didn't see anything like that. Well done, Professor. That was a great counter-argument. All right. Order, order. Time for the sacred chalice. Pray forgive the discourtesy if I savor a drop from my hallowed chalice to accompany my old friend's adducing. Oh boy. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barrack, but I'm really not a patch on you. No, you're not. No? Oh boy. You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. I have? A particular situation in which very little bleeding would result from a stab wound. Of course. Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir. Where are they going with this? Very well. You will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. Okay. So that's all the testimony I have to work with. We'll have to press those two statements. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Van Zieks keep that to himself until now on purpose to gain the advantage? Oh well, I suppose all I can do is press the witnesses for as much new information as possible. Alright, so we're going to skip to the statement that we accidentally skipped before. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. Hold it! So let's find out about that. Another fatal injury, you say? That doesn't make any sense. I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it? 2, right? Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to his spine snapping in half as well. But you're saying that's not the case. You'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips, if you don't keep butting in every few seconds. But we all know that's a bottomless bag. It is. It really is. The victim plummeted 30 feet into a glass tower. It would be reasonable to assume that as the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought, but it was a red herring, wasn't it? Was it now? Alright, so now we will go to his last statement that he amended, right? The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. Hold it! So let's press that. Why would you think that, Inspector? With any wound, it's only when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. Whilst it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts, for want of a better word. I see. You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It's common knowledge for any investigator. However, the photo shows no screwdriver sticking out of his chest, so I think we can use that to counter that argument, right? Where's Sabotage when you need her? If you ask me, this bloke masked what he was doing from the view with his body before stabbing Osmond in the chest. Then he beamed the victim off the stage with his fancy device, the screwdriver still where he planted it. I would never do such a thing, not to my precious tools. I would never use them for such dirty work. You only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist. The fact remains, the lack of blood at the scene can easily be explained, as the prosecution has demonstrated. Alright, so it's time for the defense to unprove that. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body whilst he was beamed through the air. Alright, so it wasn't, though, because very clearly this photograph does not show a screwdriver through his chest, right? So let's see if we can present this. Also, before we do that, I want to look at this. Yes, it is red on the end. Let's see. This is blood. Mr. Asmund's no doubt. This is the problem with looking at murder weapons. Okay. So that's not useful. What's this? I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make note of it. Okay, so it's a metal screwdriver that was found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. Has a very distinctive handle. Okay, I wonder if that was Asmund's screwdriver that he poked through for some reason. Anyways, let's present the photo and see. That last statement would seem to be at odds with this. Okay, so that's not going to be it. It is your task, counsel, to explain this somehow to the court, not the other way around. Darn it. It just seems to jar, though, don't you think? What I think is that this whole exchange has been extremely jarring, yes. Perhaps I need to reconsider this. Okay, so I guess we just present the screwdriver, right? Because it was found in the machine. Let's just present that with our new information. You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It is common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Wow. Yes, but about this screwdriver? The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves. On the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine poking through the a metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Now you come to mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. I was very clear he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that's true. The screwdriver was in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? Well, what are you getting at? If this tool had still been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. That's right. It should have been beamed across to the Crystal Tower along with Mr. Asmund. And been found still lodged in the victim's chest. Foiled again. Order! How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't... It looks as though everything that the victim had on his person moved with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously, that should have been beamed to the destination as well. Ew. This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying that this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments on the assumption that it actually did take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord, If the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in its argument, we can only conclude that the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Van Zeeks is stoned. Wait, what? Excuse me? What? Why would you object? What? Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry. About what? Without delving into details, there's no inconsistency. What? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asmund's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remaining on the stage is consistent with my calculations. Dude, why? Why? Why did you open your mouth? What is wrong with you? Seriously. What? Like, why did you just stab yourself in your own foot? It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation. Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument, my own client sabotages it. Scientists. Oh, man. Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with the scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. Like, why would you do this, my guy? Seriously. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. Oh, boy. More witness testimony. The inconsistency explained. Oh, boy. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering my data in my research. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asmund was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. You're not gonna do a good job with that from jail, my guy. Everyone's just like, why? Why did you not just keep your mouth closed? So the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrayne would still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. You are such an idiot. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Harebrayne? Yes? Whose side are you on here? Exactly! I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No, no, no. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Right, okay. Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, man. He's a hostile witness, and he's our witness. Alright, so the inconsistency explained. To be clear, I am still at the stage of gathering data in my research.
Hold it!
Okay. And yet you retort to my argument, your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in very highest esteem. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. So you're quoting a random guy you don't even know the name of? What is wrong with you? It might be worth keeping the names of your idols in mind. Exactly. All brains, no common sense. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. This scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. So Lord Venzeeks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. Ouch. Wow, burn. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though. Hence, the metal weapon would have stayed put.
Hold it!
But it would have just fallen to the ground, right? Your hypothesis states it, so this isn't proven, then. No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can't be decomposed by electrolysis. Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made out of wood, you see. Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I call the C. obtusa cage, in which Mr. Asman was placed for the kinesis. Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort. I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct? Yes, that's it. Yes. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical model. But the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Indeed, sir. Someone beam me out of this nightmare. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all.
Hold it!
You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No. I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse. I know that. No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asman? Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project and the research grant, of course. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible.
Hold it!
How did you come to know Mr. Asman in the first place? A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. That's a very small paper. That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles. I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water. What? Watered down water? Out of a tiny little glass. What? But Mr. Asmund read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory. So he read the tiny little article out of the tiny little magazine while you were eating your tiny little food and your tiny little cup of water in your tiny little laboratory. Okay. And offered you money to help fund your work. Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, and Mr. Asmund provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced the fantastic machine together. The machine that you brought to the great exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I don't understand all the side of things. Mr. Asmund took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. Hold it! When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean you were involved in its construction? Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible. Yes, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Asmund and I toiled over that machine for so long, we put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony, then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder... what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? Let's look at the photo. Did something metal go with him, I wonder? So let's see. Let's look at the photo again. So his belt buckles are wooden, but these are metal and they went with him. Those are clearly metal. Okay, so we need to present this photo as proof of metal couldn't have gone, right? The metal weapon would have stayed put. So the hypothesis stating that metal couldn't transport, that's got to be wrong, because clearly metal transported. Professor Harebrayne, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asmund is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No, metal can't... that's not... metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should have also predicted that the metal-rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place. My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Harebrayne, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. He's like, just destroyed now. Order! 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 Counsel, what is the implication of this? If on the day in question the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud. I say the wreck of the machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No, never. The machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil is the blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? If we raised an objection, I don't know. I mean, if we wait and see what good is going to happen, I think we should raise an objection. On what basis? I don't know. But let's see. Objection. Let's just see. Professor Harebrayne has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes? But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public? He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing. He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. Oh, to create murder, right? For the research grant money. Oh. If the government were foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? £10? You're an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year. Oh, you could have lived handsome on that much for years. The Society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. The people's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you. Oh, man. No, I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound, the science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success. Ah, Barrack! And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Back to that. Ah, Barrack. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zeeks? The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement? They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition who were occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses? Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. This experiment was no, I don't know how to pronounce this, postige. The accused killer, the Finitier victim there on the public stage, killed the Finitier victim there on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes? It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. Oh boy. Man. Where does that leave us, I wonder? I'm really not sure. Man, I just don't know what even is going on here. Like, what would the flaw to the hypothesis be, I wonder? I mean, so if we think about Sholmes and Iris, they were both saying that it's just impossible for the kinesis to even happen. So maybe that's the flaw. Maybe it just flat out couldn't happen and something else happened instead. But what? Maybe the next turn of events is going to be to disprove the kinesis happened at all. Although that's going to deal a horrible blow to Harebrayne. He's just going to like go all to pieces for it. But maybe at least he won't be accused of murder. So we'll have to see what happens in the next episode. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Liara27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/Liara27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye.